Hi everybody, it is February 20 and I am standing outside in a light jacket. There is no snow. This is amazing. So today got up to 63.3 degrees on the front thermometer and 65 on the back thermometer, which is kind of in the sun. So pretty amazing. We're going to take you on a tour of our yard, and this is kind of scary because I'm a perfectionist and I do not like to show people my mess, and the yard's a mess. Last year was our Shemitah year, which meant it was our 7-year rest, and so we rested from everything, which means I didn't weed, we didn't do anything. So everything's really a mess. But my goal is to show you the yard with the understanding that this is where we're starting from, and we're going to be working on it throughout the year and changing things, moving things, picking up stuff, weeding, and all of that kind of idea. So if I can just let it be a fact, this is the yard and this is where the stuff is, and take you through, hopefully we'll have some fun. You can laugh at it if you want. But yeah, so we're going to go on our yard. We have a half acre, just a teeny bit over a half acre, and a lot of it is trees, but we have a big triangle-shaped yard like this. And so we have 300 feet across the bottom, about 150 feet on the angles, and a round circle wedge of 77 feet on the front. So what we mostly see is this little angle square about right here is what we usually see. But all the trees over there, if you want to look over there, are all ours. And then if you look over to the other side, all those trees are ours as well. And so we're going to see if maybe we can figure out some ways to utilize those trees and do something. So anyway, let's go on our hike after I've talked forever. This is the deck, la 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 la, and we're going to head down to the backyard. This is the East Terrace. We have blackberries in the top 3 terraces. Every year I go in and we pull out all the old ones and then kind of restring them back up. This terrace down here below it is strawberries, and I plant annual flowers in front of it. And then this bottom area doesn't really have a purpose right now, so we're going to try to do something more intentional with it this year. And these 2 giant monster holly bushes are both male hollies. So I am making everyone in the neighborhood's female hollies very happy. But I have no berries. So if anybody needs a male holly, I got some. Then if you look out, we have 3 beds here. This is our original 3 beds, and we go 1, 2, 3 because we count from left to right. And then when you flip over on the other side of the yard, we have 4 through 10, which go 4, 5, 6, 7, same idea. And then these 2 beds in the middle are 11 and 12. And so the raised beds that are the 1 through 10 are all 4x8s with irrigation running down them. The 2 beds in the middle, 11 and 12, are 3x12. And they have the drip irrigation that runs down the middle of those as well. That's all random different stuff in here, but we're going to try to do a lot of lettuce in bed 12, and bed 11 has garlic and spinach planted in it already. Getting ready for that. If we turn around and look back, this is my huge, giant, wonderful pile of compost. A little bit of mountain. I've been digging out of it, so that's why it's kind of, one side's not so slopey as the other side. Our old compost pit used to be over there, but Timothy has moved it all out to another spot. And then this is my lilac bush. My mom got it for me. It's a bicolor purple-white one, and it's beautiful. And it's a bit ungangly at the moment, but it's very beautiful and might get moved or altered a little bit. Back here was a asparagus bed But the problem is that it keeps getting overtaken, and it's really hard to get back in here and weed it, and it's got all kinds of stuff that grew in it, and so they're not really happy. And so we're going to try to find a new home for the asparagus this year, and I don't know what this area is going to turn into. We'll see. But hopefully it'll be something I don't have to get to a lot, because it's kind of hard to get back there. So we're going to head up around the east side of our house. We have a ranch house that is 1 story on the front and 2 stories in the back. So if you look over that way, you can see our deck and stuff. So we have some pretty steep slopes going up the side. All of that back in there is mostly ours. And we've done pretty much nothing with it. But we'll see what we can do. Our neighbors actually come and drop their leaves off in our woods, so we've got a potential pile of huge carbon that we could use, and it's breaking down as well. So our neighbors like us, they bring us their leaves, and we hopefully might get to use them in our compost and to chip them up and put them on our beds, things like that. This is where our rain barrels live in the summertime when it's actually warm enough to do it. The gutter gets sent into them right here. This we put on in the winter time, and it goes underneath of the ground, and it's a drain tile, so it lets the water out when it is warm enough to be thawing and draining water. This is a nice hosta bed. I've got, I don't know, maybe 100 daffodils and a whole bunch of crocuses and hostas all planted in there, so it's real pretty in the summer. Over here we have a field of ground covers. So I have vinca ground cover over here, which is a variegated thing, and it's real long and drapey. I have there is perennial vinca in here as well, which is myrtle kind of idea. It's more that way. And then we also have a lot of ivy, which is really pretty. It's taking over the world. So I don't know if we're going to take some of that out. Some of these are invasive. Right now it's doing a good job of holding things down, but we'll see if that stays that way or if this changes. My rhododendron is beautiful. It's big pink flowers about that big, and I really like that. And this is a Colorado holly that I got a cutting from my mom and put it there, and I'm not sure it's real happy, so that might get moved if at some point someday. This is our sign bed. We have a sign that we switch every month on new moon, and it's kind of a way for us to keep track of the new moons. But so whenever the feasts come, we have a sign that shows up for the feast. So Sukkot and Passover and some of those really awesome feasts that we celebrate from Scripture, we have a little sign that says, "Hey, we're doing this now." So this bed has hostas and some bulbs in it. This is a red bud that I started from a little stick, and then it's got little grasses in it. This bed is purely ornamental. It doesn't really function as anything besides just kind of making a nice place around the sign. Over here is my poor little tree. We planted a bunch of apple trees and fruit trees over at another place, and this one is a Honeycrisp tree. And it died. It snapped over in the middle of a storm. And so we cut it off, but it sprouted from the bottom. And if you look at it really close down here, you can see where the graft happened. So this is the scion. This is the lower part of the graft. And this part is the actual Honeycrisp part of the tree. And the sprouts are coming out of that. So that means these will be Honeycrisp branches rather than whatever that bottom is. So I saved it. And we'll see what happens. It might grow, it may not. The bunnies like to eat it, so we try to kind of save it a little bit. The deer haven't munched it off yet this year, so that's great. It's the poor little baby that we keep nursing along. We got some. This is the front point of our yard, about right here, and it goes off in a straight line that way, right next to my neighbor's house. So you can kind of see it's a fairly narrow angle. We go way out that way, and then this goes over just around this little curve, and it stops before where you get to the fire hydrant. Right about here, and then it goes off at an angle that way. So all these trees right here are all our trees. This is an apple tree. We think it's a Jonathan. It was planted by the owners before us at the birth of one of their sons, and their son is over 25 years old now. So it's been doing pretty good. It gives us apples, and they're definitely organic. You sometimes find surprises in them, but we've enjoyed having that. This spot that I put in as an herb bed, and I didn't really make it only herbs. I put in a lot of other things too, and the other things have kind of taken it over. So it is pretty. In that middle dark area, I pulled out a small pond because it wasn't functioning well, and I planted a couple hundred bulbs in there last fall. So it's going to be gorgeous this spring, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with this space, if it's even going to stay this shape, figure out, how we want to make it more productive and useful, and maybe less messy. But the Timothy works out of that room, and so he looks out that window all day. And so I try to make it pretty for him. I planted a lot of bulbs in here, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. The front of the yard it's pretty shady, so it hasn't really got anything that is a food plant in it per se. And things were planted that I didn't plant, and other things I just kind of shoved in. So it'll just get all tidied up. Under here, though, it's really fun. I planted a bunch of Japanese painted ferns, and they're really pretty, and they're actually thriving under there. We have sand, like beach sand. It is very dry, and they're very happy under there, so that's kind of neat. I'm proud of that little niche that I filled with something pretty. This side of our house originally was a slope down, I don't know, I would say a good 40-degree slope. It was enough that if you set a ball at the top, it would get it rolling pretty good. You could ride a sled down it, and you could go sledding in the wintertime. So we, several years ago, put in a whole volleyball court and a patio, and there was a pond in there, and this was all ornamental landscaping here. And it's gotten overgrown, so it needs to be reevaluated and reshuffled. We need to figure out what we really want to do with the space. If we want to leave it ornamental, or if we want to make it more productive food, or if we want to do kind of half and half. There's actually a lot of space here, so it has a lot of possibilities. This is a quick walk-in so the guy can get to the meter, and I like how it's neat and very tidy. So we're going to try to bring some of that into the rest of it. If we go down this path, it'll take us to the patio. Our humidifier's there, and it's not being very well disguised at the moment. This is a mock orange plant, and I absolutely love it. But it grew over the path, and it just was a mess, and so I actually dug it up and gave it to my sister, who planted it in a spot that could be wild. Apparently I missed a piece of the root or something, because it came back. And so this time when I dig it up, we're going to have to find a new spot for it. But it is a beautiful plant and it smells really pretty. So we just have to figure out a spot where it's not going to like attack you when you walk down the path. This whole area is a little wild. When we had our dogs, they used to go and dig holes and tear out plants and hide in there for shade. So it's kind of ungangly a little bit. It's got some really neat plants in it. They're just not well organized. And so that is something that I want to amend. Again, with the ivy, it is literally taking over everything. I originally planted it to go on the other side, and it decided to want more sun. It's also got lambium up there, and we have some pachysandra up there as well. So, probably just getting organized. And if you were to go underneath of all that ivy, there's actually some really big boulders that are underneath of there. And they were there with the pond, and the pond was this whole area right here. And again, that pond got taken out because it wasn't constructed well and it didn't function well. And so if I were to do another pond, I've learned a lot from the two that I've done, but I would do some things very differently, and I would do some things the same. I like some aspects and some not. This whole area up here is all ours, going back that direction. Here's our stash of rocks and other sorts of things that we haven't used yet, but we might use. Underneath of here is actually a whole path of rocks. That this whole area was all very neat and tidy in rocks, but it just doesn't, if you don't rake it, it doesn't stay neat. This is the new compost pile. We moved it so Timothy can actually get to it and turn it. Like it needs to be turned, it needs to be rotated, aerated, and things. It's a monster right now, and we need to add a lot of leaves to it. We get almost 2 5-gallon pails of coffee grounds every week from the local coffee shop, and that's a lot of green or a lot of nitrogen. So we need to add a lot, many leaves to bring the carbon up, and that will help it break down faster. In the permaculture class we're taking, there's a course that is going to be given on composting specifically, and so we're both looking forward to that to kind of get some direction on how to do this really well, because apparently they make compost, high quality compost, in a very short amount of time, and that would be great to be able to find that. If you look at the soil, that is our sand. That is what we live on. That's what we're growing on. Unless we add something to it, that's it. You can see kind of the pile that's left over from a bunch of chips we've had. All those trees and all that land back there is ours. Got a lot of sassafras, and that huge sassafras tree right there is about half and half. Sassafras are very fast growing, but they die quickly, so they don't get real big, and once they get big, they're done. Here's my plant graveyard, as Timothy calls it. This is where if I don't get something planted, or if I've bought something and it's not going in the ground before winter, I just bury the pot, and then I push the sand around it and cover it with leaves, and that protects it. If you were to leave the pot out, it would simply freeze and it would get too cold for the plant and it would kill it. But the part that's the bad part is that I don't take them back out sometimes. So they sometimes seem like they're there forever, and then they're sad because they need a home, which we will try to find a home for them. And if I don't find a home, then that means I'm going to have to find a home at somebody else's house for them, or the compost pile, which I make Timothy throw my plants in the compost pile because I can't do it. It's just too sad to kill something. So he does it. He's very happy to throw them away for compost. This is a little bed that it's really hard to find something that's happy there because it's got a lot of shade and it doesn't get watered really well, but then it gets blazing sun. in the afternoon. So it's definitely part sun, not part shade. And so we were contemplating where to banish the mint to, because the mint just takes over the world and it's running along the fence and it's taking over some of the areas. I thought, well, hey, maybe we can put the mint there, and if it can survive, more power to it, and it will be much more controlled because there is actually landscape fabric all the way around this area that will help keep it contained a little bit. So that might be a future project. Right now it has parsley growing in it. I planted some parsley several years ago, I think almost 3 years ago now, and it just keeps growing and reseeding itself, and so I've got a parsley bed that's fairly happy, but it's not real happy if it doesn't get enough water in the middle of the summertime. So some of these beds got lots of stuff going on, and I'm going to see if we can figure out how to make it a little neater. All of this is dune grass, and it is holding our sand up a little bit, but it's also very sharp and very pokey. So I don't know if that's going to stay. We were kind of thinking maybe another thing that plant there would be lavender, which likes the sharp drainage and can handle the dryness. We'd have to amend the soil, of course. But another niche to fill that might have possibilities. This is where our greenhouse is. We leave the bottom frame up. This is where we put our trays and things like that. The greenhouse is about 8 feet tall, 8 feet long, and 6 feet wide. So in the springtime, when the plants are big enough that they don't need to be under the grow lights anymore, they need something more than that, but it's too cold out yet, we bring them out and put them in the greenhouse. Sometimes I have to bring them in at night because it's too cold, but this works really well, and we've had a lot of success growing a stronger, happier seedling in the greenhouse than just under the grow lights. So it'll get rebuilt sometime in probably the beginning of April, because I'm starting seeds today actually, and they will be needing to go out there soon. This is a spot that used to have a whole bunch of gojies. Gojies are a little, it's like a red blueberry kind of idea, and I started a bunch from seed, and that one I started from seed, and it's the only one that's really been halfway happy. The rest of them were not. This goji I purchased, it's an official Proven Winners goji, and it is a much better plant overall. It's also, I think, it's been messed with a little bit in that it's a cultivar of the gojis rather than just a goji from the health food store that I started from seed. And another thing gojis really need is a lot of water and a lot of rich soil, which obviously this does not have. And I think the reason why that one is happy is because it's right by the spigot. And so every time we'd water and use the faucet, it would get water. And I also throw water off top of the deck onto it because, every time I rinse out a pot and I don't want to throw all that junk down the sink, I just throw my stuff overboard, so it gets water that way, and that is probably why it's survived. This is my little pile of walking onions. They're going to need to get dug up and separated. They came from Iowa from a lovely lady named Annie, who's a friend of mine, and she heard that I wanted some, so she dug some up, gave them to me. I brought them on a plane all the way back, carrying this very odoriferous bag with dirt and mud in it on the plane, and people laughed at me, but I got walking onions now. They're flying onions. So those are going to get a new home. This is our well, actually. We are about 11 feet over the water table. Lake Makatawa is 1/8 of a mile to the south of us, and so our water table is very high. But because this is our ground of our basement, we haven't had any trouble with water. So when we want to boil up well water, we have a hand pump that we can put on there if we want. And under our deck, nothing is going to grow in this much shade. So we have our shed and the wonderful potting bench that Timothy built me, that I use a lot. It's a perfect size for doing all of my work. And then it's got a nice shelf underneath of it. This is my pail of rocks, pebbles and stuff like that I dress up stuff. I don't know if you can see inside the window, but I've got 2 fig trees going right now. This fig tree is, I think, a brown turkey, and it has just gone to town. And then I've got a Chicago hardy fig in the corner. This monstrosity right here is an avocado. And then this is my King Tut papyrus plant that I had in my pond, and I couldn't bear to kill him. He's too cool. So he's just in a big pot. And he keeps growing as long as I keep watering him. So the last thing I want to show you, I think it's the last thing, I'm always saying the last thing, is our blueberry bushes. So we have some blueberry bushes. They're actually getting quite big. I probably need to prune them this spring. Like, I would take off this guy right here, and then we'll probably take this guy off, maybe that one, the oldest stems, and leave more of these younger ones, because those are what my understanding is going to give you the most berries. And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have 6. The first 4 are much healthier than the last 2. I don't know if we will keep them or move them. Actually, we have 7 of them. The last 3 of them are pretty tiny. There is a bush under here. So, that's stinging nettle. It's a good thing, but not when you're putting your hand in it. This is a little guy, and these 2 are the little sticks, and they're not real happy. So I don't know. We'll have to figure out how to make them happier and take care of that. And as you can see in our beds, we just totally let them go. And it is quite a mess, but that's okay. We're going to pick it up, clean it up. There's a lot of dill. We have fennel, rue, lamb's ear, stinging nettle, mint, sunflowers that all just came up by themselves, kale, all came back and are growing in the beds. And so we have to clean them out a bit, put some more of our compost in there, and get a move on. So this week is supposed to be warm, like 50s, which is just insane for February. And we might start tackling some of the cleaning up things. We're not planting anything, of course, but just the tidying, and everything's dead. Start bringing it in. And then next Saturday, it's supposed to snow again, so back to winter. But anyway, that is a tour of our yard, and maybe we'll keep doing it every so often so you can see how we change things, how we update things, and so we can keep track of what it looked like at one point, and hopefully it'll be a much more productive and beautiful place later. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you again.